It's FoosTalk Live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. FoosTalk Live. Coming to you live from the studios of Foosball Radio and inside Foos TV, it's the 43rd episode of FoosTalk Live. Brought to you in part by 518 Prints, one of the best printers of promotional items, t-shirts, jackets, hoodies, and foosball apparel. Visit 518prints.com today. Also brought to you in part by Foosballers, the movie. Download your copy of this Joe Hesslinger documentary. Foosballersthemovie.com is the site to visit. Also brought to you in part by Foosballers, brought to you by Foosball Clubs USA, promoting foosball through school systems all over the country. Visit foosballclubsusa.com and make a donation today. And brought to you by the United States Table Soccer Organization, the USTSO, helping to usher in a new era of competitive foosball. Become a member now and register at usafoosball.com. Welcome back to FoosTalk Live. Hey there, I'm Tom Robinson. It's time once again to gather together and celebrate the love of foosball. Of course, this being Valentine's Day, love is in the air. There's no doubt about that. And of course, when it comes to a good relationship, chemistry comes into play. And of course, what would this show be without the chemistry of the greatest foosball play-by-play announcer, Jim Stevens? Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Tom. Happy Valentine's Day to you and your wife, of course. And been a good day for us here in Durango with my wife. Hold on a second. Honey, I've got to work the radio show. Just be patient. Maybe I'll spend time with you later.
Oh.
Anyway. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there listening. And we kind of have a Valentine's themed show tonight, don't we, Tom?
Yes, we do indeed. Now, of course, our chemistry wouldn't be complete unless, of course, we welcome in the spice.
I know you so well. I could tell by the sound of your voice if you're really in love with me. And you are. Yes, you are.
Well, it just wouldn't be the same.
No, I'll stop there.
I was wondering if we could get a romantic karaoke song this evening. I think that's already happened. So, Mark Torres, welcome back to FoosTalk Live.
I've been called the crooner of my generation.
The crooner?
And it's, yes, the best Filipino karaoke singer in my zip code, top 10 at the bar I went to for the 2012 season was the actual award I got. Very narrow.
Yeah.
Very narrow.
Sort of like
whatever.
Winning.
Happy Valentine's
We've been listening
Day.
to a lot of Lionel Richie around the house today.
Have you really?
Hello, is it me you're looking for?
In the voice of Frederic Collignon. Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
I would think a whole lot less of you if it was Air Supply. Okay, just gonna let you know.
Air Supply. No street cred there, Tom. Any street cred you had just went right down the toilet with Air Supply, bro.
Oh,
Air Supply. Come on,
please.
Those folks sold a lot of records. They did. They did sell a lot of records. Tonight we're going to be looking at the top 5 foosball couples. And there have been a lot of notable ones over the years, Tom Robinson, champions, maybe couples for an interesting couple for other reasons, who knows? But it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think Mark and I are gonna have a lot of fun with this topic here tonight.
Awesome. I think that I'd be interested to hear what's going on and off the table when it comes to romance. I'd be very interested to hear.
Off the table. That's kinky. All right. Whatever.
Well, I mean, okay. I can just hardly wait for all the euphemisms when it comes to foosball and Valentine's Day.
Hot.
On
and off the table.
Was that Clay? Clay Toomey. Clay Toomey, who keeps the wheels turning here at FoosTalk Live and keeps us all honest.
I'm sorry, man. Clay couldn't make it tonight. I thought I was muted.
And who are you? Who might you?
You were muted?
Man, I don't really figured that part out yet, but we're going to. I promise.
It's Lionel Richie.
We take it's Lionel Richie, ladies and gentlemen. Say you, say me.
Hello.
Oh, we're off to a great start here tonight, for sure.
And
the other thing, guys, I think we're also going to be taking questions from the listeners, from the fans of the Inside Foos TV Facebook group, etc. Doing an Ask Us Anything and Ask Me Anything night as well. And those are always fun and always a bit unpredictable.
Oh, no question about that. And I think, of course, because it is Valentine's Day, what would it be without the social lubricant of the IPA of the week?
What Jim and I like to do right about this time is to reveal our favorite IPA.
So yes, weird. Sir. So, yeah, I know that there is something in your palm, Jim, and we hope it's a cold one.
What is going on here?
It is an IPA, thankfully, here tonight as we try to bring this show back onto course here. Tom, actually, I'm not going far from home. I'm going down to Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is about 3 hours south of Durango here, our closest big city, actually, to the Marble Brewery, outstanding brewery down in Albuquerque. It's a seasonal IPA called Safe Word IPA.
Safe Word.
Yeah, it has tones of red, pineapple, banana. It's a sensory experience so intense and dank, you are going to need a safe word. Yeah, 7.5% alcohol by volume.
Wow.
Let me have a sip.
Safe word.
Hey, Tom, what's the social lubricant in your palm?
Well, what, Jim? First of all, Jim, I got to compliment you on your recovery from that the faux pas. Okay,
that's a recovery. We're in trouble.
Oh yeah. Well, this brewery is called the Short Throw Brewery from North Haven, Connecticut, and I happen to be holding on to the number 8 IPA in the world, so ranked, called Clans, Posses, Crews, and Clicks. 6.8% by volume. Let's try Clans, Posses, Crews, Clicks, and there we go. All right. Ooh, okay.
Weird.
Number 8. I'm not sure about that, but not bad. Oh yeah. So Mark, how about you?
I think so. I have a Dasani water.
There you go.
Sunday, and I think it's because Clay entered my subconscious with every time he brought a Dasani water. And never wanted to be a critical thinker myself. Now I have one, and I'll probably have one every Sunday. Dasani water, purified, 16.9 fluid ounces, and it's bottled and packaged probably in Tijuana. So I'm worried it's not water at all, but just drink it.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Spoken by like a true Cupid. And yes. And so, Clay?
Well, I also have the standard bottle of water this week, but I've added to the mix. I'm going twin engine again.
I've got engine.
7. It's a small one, 7.5
twin engine
fluid ounce Coca-Cola.
Ooh.
Oh, that sounded like a commercial.
Those little cans
corporate
are so
sellout.
cute, aren't they?
They fit right in the palm of my hand, Jim. Delicious.
Boy, we're off to a wonderful start here.
Well.
Intoxicated on Coca-Cola and the whole nine. Man, I'll tell you. Well, anyway, so tonight being Valentine's Day, first of all, Jim, I'd like to ask you, what did you and your wife, you celebrate with cards? What do you do? What typically?
Yeah. Cards. Had a nice little dinner before the show, and of course, spending time with the family. The kids love Valentine's Day as well. And, not a lot of opportunities for the kids these days. As of course, we all remember being in school and exchanging Valentines and those little heart-shaped candies.
Oh, yes.
And all of that. And that's had to take a little bit of a back seat because of the COVID situation. But we celebrated at home with the kids here as well.
And your kids, do they make cards, or do they just kind of stand back and go? You guys are just
very creative. At some point, my daughter's artwork will be worth money.
Okay.
And so I'm looking forward to that day for sure. But they do. They both very, very creative kids, and especially Ari, who always makes me that See a Foosin card on Valentine's Day.
See a Foosin? Yeah. I love it.
See a Foosin.
And Mark, you have 2 lovely daughters, and do they kick you out of the house for Valentine's Day? What's the deal?
No, man, I don't like. So this is probably the most boring answer ever, but my wife and I don't buy each other anything for birthdays, Christmas, or Valentine's Day. It's just kind of a thing we decided when we were dating. We started dating 11, 12 years ago. We decided, so we don't, we celebrate moments and we celebrate time, but we don't buy each other stuff. But our daughters do the Valentine stuff. They make stuff and we make gifts or whatever. So and we eat chocolate. So we don't we deny the holiday, but it's just a friendly, compassionate time around the house. Just a break away from the usual screaming and yelling and beration that I get from them. How's that?
Yeah,
I love it.
And for those of you that don't know or didn't realize it, that was a joke I was making earlier when I was yelling out the door to my wife here. We had a great day here together. And of course, my wife, Amy, a world champion foosball player, pro foosball player as well.
Yeah.
She won no pro women's doubles at the World Championships, but she was also voted the 2009 most improved player on the Tornado Tour, which we're very proud of. So, we're a foosball couple, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
In fact, we met, as we have documented on the show here, playing foosball. And that's, I think, going to be a little bit of the theme here tonight.
Yeah.
As well, with some of these couples, did they meet before foosball or during foosball, or how responsible was foosball for bringing these people together?
Is it the heart of their relationship or not? Or is it just a periphery kind of thing? I just happen to both like foosball, but, we still like each other. So, yeah, cool. Well, yes, I think that there's, in honor of this date, this time, it's only fair that when we take our look back at foosball history, we do something similar to this. So let's do it. It's FoosTalk Live Flashback with great moments in foosball history. This is a FoosTalk Live Flashback.
Shot attempt taken away by Moritz. Again, to win the Open Doubles Championship, Robert Moritz. Strokes it home, and there it is. What a performance by Robert Moritz and Terry Rue as they come back from the losers bracket to defeat Tony Spredeman and Todd Lafredo and win the 2015 Tornado World Open Doubles Championship. And that one stuffed back into the goal, and there it is. Linda Lee and Keisha Rue are the 2015 World Champions in women's doubles. And you saw husband Terry standing there with his medal around his neck. Keisha is going to have one of those medals as well.
Listen in next time for another great moment in foosball history. It's FoosTalk Live Flashback. Well, there's an interesting occurrence. That was the same tournament, I take it, that Terry and Keisha both won.
Yes.
Okay.
Jim is muted. He usually chimes in here, but maybe Amy is telling him what's what.
Uh-oh.
So
we could be
I want to speak to that. I was there when Robbie and Terry won that open doubles final, and I having watched Robbie for a long time, I always thought his 5-bar was suspect, especially because of the pace he puts on his passes. And I thought I never imagined his 5-bar would hold up at forward to win an open doubles final.
Right.
And he proved me wrong.
Yeah.
And he proved me absolutely wrong. His 5-bar was on fire, and it is a reminder. And anybody who watches Robbie's 5-bar knows it doesn't have a lot of pace on the passes. But the thing about his 5-bar, especially on that weekend, is all of his passes looked exactly the same. You could not tell. His wall pass and his lane pass, his runner pass, they all looked the same, and no one could get a read on it. So that weekend, that match, his 5-bar was perfect. And I respectfully reeled back in anything I ever said about Robbie's 5-bar not being able to hold up in an open doubles final.
Really, really, really interesting.
Yeah, no, it was. And Mark nailed it. It was a situation where every pass looked the same. It gave him confidence because down the stretch, and of course, they went into the losers bracket, I think, at 5th place. And down the stretch, he caught fire offensively on the 3-row as well. And I think a lot of it was confidence. He was getting it. He was walking it. He was going with it. And his shooting percentage down the stretch was, I'm not going to quote a number here because I'll just be told that it's a fake stat, but it was really high. The other thing interesting was Terry Rue's reaction when they won. I mean, it was an amazing one. He literally fell on the floor, broke into tears. I mean, what a great moment.
Cool.
The only time, as far as my research tells me, that a husband and wife won open doubles, women's doubles at the same world championship. So really quite a feat by the Rues, both Keisha and Terry in this case.
Now,
and of course, Sully, that same weekend, also won junior.
The same weekend?
World championship. So amazing weekend for them. Yep.
Really? Wow. So so the Rue family must have had quite a celebration. I mean, when it comes to think about and will that kind of thing happen again? What's the likelihood of that occurring again with any family, for that matter?
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, one thing we're going to notice too, and Mark, I think you'll agree with this, and is that over the years there have been great male players, great female players who are married or have a relationship, and it's not very often that they have success playing together. Take it for what it's worth. But if you look at certain players, they would never play with their wife or husband in an event just because it just doesn't seem to work,
Yeah.
And so that's a rare thing. And it's, but that also has happened. And we're going to talk about a little bit about that tonight.
Well,
you actually see people, once they start dating, they just stop playing together. They might have played together before they started dating.
Right.
And then they're like, know intuitively, or they know after one event, for whatever reason, if we're going to keep dating, we probably shouldn't play together.
Yeah.
So that usually happens. So
it's like
we're either going to be partners or we're going to be partners.
Yeah. Right. No, the other thing that I was going to mention too, because we are talking about, romance on and off the table when it comes to Valentine's Day for FoosTalk Live. There's also the other side of this, because a lot of great players out there are backed up by great spouses. They have someone at home that really takes the time and the patience to allow them to, take the weekend to go to, let's say, Las Vegas or to whatever tournament. And of course, oftentimes they get left behind. So what does happen? And I do want to say hats off to those who are in that situation, whether they be male or female, a foosball widow or a foosball widower. Here's to you. In fact, you're the one that really sacrifices to make sure that your foosball player is top notch.
Is this our honor group of the week?
It is actually.
Wives at home that couldn't be happier to get rid of their husbands. I'll drink to them.
But on the other hand, there are also those wives at home, and in some cases, even husbands at home who don't necessarily see the value of them going to a foosball tournament, and it can create hardships for that foosball player at times.
No doubt. No, it's probably like any other major sport where someone is so dedicated to what they do and so dedicated to winning that everything else kind of falls into second place.
So we don't toast them. Do we jeer them? Do we go jeer?
I suppose. Yeah.
To hell with you.
I mean, we could take a survey. What do you think? I mean, what do people think when is it?
Yeah, let's keep it on the positive side here. Those foosball widows and widowers.
So there are, and of course, widows and widowers in foosball. We do appreciate your patience with those who want to step out and be the best. I mean, right?
We toast those widowers that support us, and we jeer those damn your eyes to those who offend us. Damn your eyes.
I'm okay with that.
That works.
All right, fine.
Okay.
All right.
So, we are definitely going to be talking tonight about the top 5 most memorable couples in foosball. So, what do you say, guys? Are you ready to dive into this? Are you ready to take your shots?
I suppose so.
All right, let's do it.
Johnny Horton and Dave
once
Kern.
again for the FoosTalk Live top 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here's Jim Stevens and Mark Torres.
Yes, Valentine's Day, Mark Torres. A chance to look at some of the great couples in the history of foosball. For the most part, I took a tact of it being actual couples, but there are other ways of looking at this, I suppose, and I'm sure we're going to hear some of those ways from your side of the ledger. But a really neat topic. And again, all of you have heard my story, how I met my wife, and the rest is history in terms of having a couple children, etc. But in most cases, Tom Robinson and Mark Torres, these couples met because of foosball. There's a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, it was foosball that brought them together, that brought their paths together, that eventually led to having children or life together or whatever. So foosball has been Cupid in many situations.
So are we ready to launch into our top 5 and start with number 5? How's that sound?
Whatever you want, man. It's your show.
All right.
I just show up every Sunday.
FoosTalk Live top 5. Number.
I like that harp. That was my favorite instrument in high school. So
I know
some honorable mentions. Can we do honorable mentions?
Yeah, let's do a couple of those.
All right. So one of my honorable mentions is Jim and me, because although Jim wanted a romantic relationship, I refused. But as far as the duo goes on the mic, Jim and me have to be one of the most memorable companionships in foosball.
Also, you may have misread some of my overtures, Mark, based on what you just said.
When you put your hand on my knee, there's very few ways to read that, dude. Just let's not go back there, okay?
I'm trying to reset your knee after you fell off the stage after those 9 drinks.
Man.
Come on, buddy.
This is hey, hold on a second. This is the top 5 most memorable couples in foosball, not couples therapy, okay? Just
okay.
Get that straight.
Solid. I also like Rob Atha and the European Union. I'll leave that there. Let's leave that one right there. A similar one, the American side, Bobby Diaz and the United States Table Soccer Association. I call those both romantic couples of a type. Finally, my last honorable mention is me and myself, because I'll tell you what, I never dated a foozer. Not that I didn't have an opportunity, but I did date myself, especially to 30 years old. Anyway, let's go. Number 5, you ready? Let's do this.
You just took you took my number 5 right there with you and yourself. Let me throw in a couple of mine. Of course, Fred and Todd. What a great pairing that was, right? Yeah. I mean, when they got together, they were one, weren't they, as a team, and they really had great chemistry on and off the table.
And they swap jeans too. Did you notice? Like sometimes Fred would be wearing white jeans and they go to the men's bathroom, and then Todd would be wearing white jeans. It was weird.
Yeah, no, true story.
Oh, come on.
I remember that. I have video evidence of that, I believe. Dave Gummison and Tracy McMillan, of course, such a great pair as well. Really, again, that's that chemistry, that really foosball love that they have for each other that really demonstrates itself on the table itself.
And it was like 2013 when Dave got a stylist and he lost a bunch of weight. And it was really ambiguous, wasn't it? Those guys vanished all the time together, up in the room, come down, look a little haphazard. Dave would put some gel in his hair. It was really weird.
And then a few others around the foosball world, Trevor and Vivian Park, of course, Midori and Eric Hiltner, a great player, Ryan Moore and Iveta, who had just had a couple of kids, Jason Wicks down in Texas with Brittany. Great couple as well. So
now, hang on, these are all honorable mentions.
Mark, go ahead and launch into your number 5.
Do we do this whole?
Let's do it. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's start this over. Reset.
Take 2.
FoosTalk Live top 5. Number.
Oh my God. What? That was a 3, I think. Okay. All right. This show is off the rails and the harp is tripping me out, dude. All right. Number 5, Ingrid and Fred. Gosh, man. I just remember Ingrid always being there, and Ingrid's there and Fred's winning, and and then Killian is there, and I just love that couple, man. Just to stay, we talked earlier about foundational partners, and Ingrid I love Ingrid and Fred. At my number 5, what can you say? The greatest world champion of all time had Ingrid there behind him, and Ingrid and Fred are still together. I talked to Fred a month or 2 ago. Love that couple. That's my number 5.
Yeah, no, they were great, no question about it. And then they met playing foosball. Ingrid's father, Maurice, was the head of the federation there in Belgium, and that's how they initially met. So they met playing foosball. Of course, Frederic Collignon went on to become a great world champion. I believe Ingrid also has a couple of world championships in international events. And of course, Killian. We all remember when Killian was born back in the early 2000s, and how special that was. And he followed the family everywhere, etc. So my number 5, though, is Tommy and Kathy Atkinson. Great players, both of them. Tommy Atkinson in the Hall of Fame. Kathy Atkinson with a couple of world championships, one of which was with Tommy. And now this is one of those exceptions to the rule here, Tom, where Tommy and Kathy were able to survive an event and actually win it. Back, I believe it was 2011 when they won the Tornado World Championship, playing the mixed doubles competition there in Dallas. And so, and we all know how great of a player Tommy Atkinson is. I don't know that a whole lot of people know just how great Kathy is. This is a woman who just has an outstanding game at both positions, really didn't play enough maybe to qualify for the Hall of Fame, but a great player, a world champion in women's doubles, a world champion in mixed doubles as well. So my number 5 out of the state of Oklahoma, Tommy and Kathy Atkinson.
FoosTalk Live Top 5. Number.
Well, that.
God. Come on, let me finish playing here, Mark. Come on.
Just imagine me in a thong wearing the whatever olive on my head.
No.
Just also reminds me of Wayne's World. You know what I mean? Anyway, all right. My number 4 is Kathy and Tommy. And if you didn't know this, Tom Robinson in 2011, they won Open Mix together. They were one of the few couples. Now I'm just going to repeat everything Jim said anyway. Yes. Love Tommy, Kathy. There's just a great world champion duo. They're both of my Facebook friends. I keep up with them. Everybody keeps up with each other these days. But Tommy, everybody knows what Tommy's all about. And Kathy's been at his side, supporting him. They have great kids together. Love that couple. Tommy, Kathy, my number 4.
Yeah, they're so good. So good. Well, I'm going to repeat a few things here because my number 4 is Fred and Ingrid. And again,
no creativity.
That's the one thing about those two is they were inseparable at events. Ingrid watched every one of his matches if she wasn't playing. And early on in his career, she did not play a whole lot. It was not, and even I think later on, didn't play as much maybe, certainly as he did. But inseparable. She was always supportive, always bringing him water, always doing whatever needed to be done to be a good teammate, so to speak. And they could have played together, although they have very seldomly played together in mixed doubles. But I think that's a couple that probably could have got away with it, could have done it. Although who knows? The dynamics that occur during the course of playing foosball together can be challenging, no doubt about it. But my number 4, Frederick Collignon and Ingrid Oban.
FoosTalk Live Top 5. Number 3.
That makes me laugh, dude. That heart makes me laugh. All right. My number 3, the Murrays, Gina and Steve Murray. God, I have so many warm memories of those two together. And they won Open Mixed at the 1990 Worlds. And I saw them win that. It's funny. I was on the phone with Steve Murray a couple months ago, and Gina's calling him for dinner, and he addresses her so sweetly and so lovely. And the man that Steve appears to me as a husband and father and grandfather, and then the persona on the foosball table, and they're both raging infernos of fire and passion and competitiveness on the foosball
Raging
table.
Inferno?
Steve is Steve's got you've heard me talk about Steve almost every show, and I just appreciate his competitiveness, and they carry that together, and they're still that hot on the foosball table, and so I love that couple, Steve and Gina Murray, my number 3.
My number 3 is Terry and Keisha Rue, which told you the strength of my top 2. And Terry and Keisha, of course, we talked about it with a flashback earlier on. Another team, I think, that could play together and has played together over the years. In fact, I remember them winning a Texas State championship a few years ago in just amazing fashion. And this is a team that can play together. And it's also a team, really, of all of the ones we've talked about, that did not meet playing foosball. In fact, when I first met Keisha, and probably for the first 5 years that Keisha was out on tour, so to speak, she wasn't a player. She didn't start playing until maybe around 2000 or so. But it was Terry out there doing his thing, and Keisha would be up there at every one of his matches watching, but not competing. Now, of course, as we documented earlier on, they have both since won world championships. Keisha also a member of the United States Women's World Cup gold medal team of 2019. And really, these days, when you look at it, probably the current first family or first couple of foosball. Yeah. Of course, family is probably a more accurate description because of Sullivan, their outstanding daughter. In many ways, she's outstanding on and off the table. They're just two great people, two great parents. But for me, number 3, I got Terry and Keisha.
FoosTalk Live Top 5. Number 2.
It'd be good if you added 2 more bars to that,
yes,
Tom.
I know.
Okay. So, ironically, my number 2 is Keisha and Terry, and I had a debate here when it got to the top 3, really. But when you start spawning world champions, like when you spawn a world championship, like a champion, like Sully, when you breed world champions, you gotta move up on the list a little bit. So you said it all. I seem to remember a picture, an early picture, and Terry looks like he's about 140 pounds. It must have been when he was like dancing with Mark Wahlberg and the Funky Bunch, and he's playing foosball with Keisha standing across from him, and so these are a couple from youth, from what I understand, not the nicest neighborhoods in Louisiana, that have been together through thick and thin. So Terry obviously going from being a aspiring professional dancer to whatever he did in between to work his tail off and become the chief nurse anesthetist at one of the biggest hospitals, and Keisha being by his side the entire time, and the success and just the all the loveliness of that family, and the character and personality and integrity of that family, especially as documented in Foosballers, it's visible for everyone to see. I love Keisha and Terry. You said it all, Jim. Keisha and Terry, number 2.
You know, I got to say, interrupt here for a second, guys, but the 800-pound gorilla in the room here, we got to have the whole family on this show sometime soon. FoosTalk Live.
For sure.
Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. My number 2, Terry and Tiffany Moore. Now, of all the couples we've discussed so far, this is the one that is no longer together. However, when they were together, and this, I want to see 1996 Tornado World Championships, they got married at that event in the ballroom with the Inside Foods cameras recording it.
Cool.
And it was a really special thing for the entire foosball tournament, the entire foosball family to come together and watch these two be united. And of course, they both eventually became Hall of Fame players, multiple world champions, did not play together. And even in 1997 Hall of Fame Classic up in Oakland, Terry Moore won open doubles and open singles. Tiffany Moore won women's doubles and women's singles. And so these were two. And the reason I have them here, number one, they got married at the Worlds, right? But also the fact that they're two of the greatest players of all time, both, I think, top 10 American players, certainly. But also the fact they're both in the Hall of Fame. These are two Hall of Fame players who did survive a pretty good run as a married couple. But as far as quality of performance, I don't think you can find a stronger couple, maybe anywhere, in terms of what they have done individually, for the most part, in both of their careers as a singles and doubles players. And so for me, number 2 is Terry and Tiff.
So confused.
FoosTalk Live proudly presents.
Oh my God.
The top 5. Number 1.
Wait for it.
There it is.
Just for you.
I really lost my crap on that string quartet, didn't I? double fisted that harp. All right.
Oh, God.
My number 1 is my number 1 because, like so many other things about foosball, it's in my imagination. It's romanticized. All I have are the stories. And what my imagination brings to those stories. My number 1, Laurie Schranz and Jim Wiswell.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I just, like, you hear the stories, man, of this couple traveling across the country together. And as described to me, Laurie is an incredible goalie. She's so damn good. She teaches Doug Furry how to play goalie. And we get that from Ken Allwell, right? And they are on the tour, man. They're like in whatever car they're driving, and they're time hopping, and they're going from spot to spot, and they're making money, and they're having fun, and they're in my romantic notion, they're foosball's first couple. They're epitome of it all, and it's almost like a Shakespearean tragedy. And that's another story, how that story ends. But I don't think there's any other homage to a romantic memory that I don't even know personally than attributed to Laurie Schranz and the legendary Jim Wiswell. They're my number one.
Yeah, that's awesome. It did occur to me. I just didn't know how I would handle it. As you said, it really is Shakespearean. The way it came to an end was tragic. And this is Jim Wiswell. This is maybe the most legendary player of the 1970s. Anybody who ever saw him play has romanticized his abilities to the point now where he is Superman, and in some ways he was. Laurie Schranz, best lady player of the $1 Million Tour, no question about it. I think we had her number 2 maybe on our list earlier this year of top all-time lady players. And the way it all happened is we'd love to romanticize it, so we're going to continue to do that. It did not end well, and was a very tragic moment in the history of foosball, the way it all happened. Laurie Schranz retired after that and has gone about her life and has led a very successful life. But I think that's a great choice. I did not put them in my top 5 just because I really didn't want to talk about it. And here I am talking about it. But a great choice. My number 1, and I'll give you the evidence here. 2 Hall of Famers. They won 4 World Mixed Doubles Championships together as a team, 87, 89, 90, and 93. They have been together forever. They have a beautiful family. They have they didn't always get along on the table. We'll put it that way. 2 very fiery people, and it was not always pretty to watch, but the results were there. These are 2 incredible players, and Steve and Gina Murray. For me, Steve being someone who was so instrumental in my start, and Gina right there with him all the time, and spent a lot of time with both of those 2 early in the day, early in my career as a commentator. Got to know Steve, who was one of my very best friends, and Gina as well. Gina, by the way, holds the record, and this might be a real stat, Clay, to me. Longest Hall of Fame induction speech ever. I think it was 47 minutes. And so, but a lovely woman, lovely children. Steve, of course, a lovely gentleman, both on and off the table. But how can I have, these 4-time world champions together as a couple as not my number 1? So they are Steve and Gina Murray, my number 1.
Dude, Murray's texting me right now. So he said, really? Tell Jim I had to keep Gina in line, man. Like Gina's ferocious. But here's the beauty about
it was competitiveness. It's all it was. It was just fierce competitors. Both
let me tell you. This is what one text that Steve sent me. I have to refer to it. So most master foosball players are fortunate to have a couple of tour wins to hang their hat on for their career. Many masters never win a tour event. And I'll go back to Terry Rue. Terry Rue probably gets into the Hall of Fame because of his body of work. He probably gets into the Hall of Fame because of stuff in the World Cup, but he absolutely gets in the Hall of Fame because he drops to his knees and cries when he wins that world title. But Gina and Steve have won so many majors together, he doesn't even know how many they've won. Yeah. So it's one thing to win a bunch of majors with a bunch of different people. It's another thing to win so many with your wife, you don't know how many you've won. And we're talking about regionals and, whatever, 15, 20 granders, tour kickoffs, mixed, opened up, whatever the events are. I think it's a remarkable stat to have so many wins with your soulmate. You don't know how many you have.
Yeah.
That's an amazing number.
So a big heart goes out to my great friend Steve and Gina Murray, and to everyone on this list tonight. A lot of fun looking at couples, and of course, I'm one of those. I'm a couple. My wife, of course, Amy, a foosball player as well.
A foosball household.
Mark's wife is not.
You're a couple. You're a couple, and you also have a wife, Jim. So,
not needs to be an Inside Foos TV T-shirt. I am a couple, and then little dash Jim Stevens. It's like a quote. I am a couple.
That is a famous quote, by the way, and it will go down in foosball history, no doubt about it. Oh, by the way, guys,
most people are nodding their heads saying, "Yeah,
there's a great question on this topic that just came through from a listener, Ashley." She asks us, now you mentioned the top couples in foosball. Is there anyone that should have been a couple that never were?
That's a rough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right?
I don't know how we answer this without insulting or embarrassing anyone.
Okay.
Mark,
who would have been a great? Who are the most photogenic people in foosball?
Most photogenic people in foosball.
Like I don't even like. You know who would have been a good couple? Mario Aragnello and Fernando Rosa.
There you go.
Stunner. Like that would have been like Euro tight pants, everything.
Euro tight.
And now the part of the disco, I can see them bobbing their heads to Bohemian Rhapsody.
Different kind of bob. Okay.
Johnny Horton and whoever the Rent-A-Cop security guard is at the tournament. No, that's bad.
This is going awry. Okay.
Am I understanding the question correctly? That we're matchmaking. We're playing. What's his name? Chuck Woolery?
Let me say. Was there ever a time when there was unrequited love? In other words, somebody who was really into someone else, but that person had wanted nothing to do with them.
I'm glad that you asked, Tom. I have quite a few of these stories. In fact, you'd be surprised how
Mark, can you speak to that?
To the Microsoft Excel spreadsheets I've made.
Let's see. Gosh, I don't know, man. Like, I have no idea how to answer these questions. There were gals in the '90s that all the guys were in love with. I won't embarrass anybody, but that happened. So yeah, unrequited love though. That's pretty deep.
Yeah,
like people on. Yeah, like stalkers. I'm sure there's a lot of good things too.
Top 5 stalkers in the history of foosball. FoosTalk Live.
Oh man. Okay.
No, we're just talking smack. By the way, I love Johnny Horton. He's got to come on this show. I adore that guy. I want to be on the show.
Yes.
But so if you're listening, Johnny, I'm sorry. I'm just messing around.
Hopefully he feels better soon.
Mark Torres and Johnny Horton.
I don't know.
It's Valentine's Day. I think we're having, we're having some fun at the expense of some
Terry
people.
Moore and Chris Doobie.
Whoa! Wait a second. Okay. Hold on,
Terry. How about a love triangle between Terry Lewis and Steve Mose?
That's not geometry I want anything to do with.
All right, let's back off of this topic now, guys. Let's move on.
I think we're good. Yeah.
One of the things we did, I don't know, a month or so ago, Tom Robinson, was to ask our Inside Foos TV group members to submit questions to us, or come on tonight on the chat and ask us questions in real time.
And we've
literally, it can be anything. I promise to answer anything that I can related to foosball. About my life, I'd probably answer it. And I know Mark feels the same way about anything asking about Mark's personal life. He will answer, I promise you.
Okay.
And his foosball career, he will not answer that. But ask us questions, folks. And Tom, I know you've harvested a few from the Inside Foos TV Facebook group, and I think Mark and I are ready. Are you ready, Mark? Clay, are you ready? We're ready to field some questions, Tom. I bet there's some for you as well.
Let's make it official, shall we?
FoosTalk Live proudly presents Ask Me Anything.
You can ask me anything.
You have to ask me nicely. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
You have some questions for me, do you? All right, well, let's get to them.
There's the cue. Oh, sorry.
Killing me, dude.
That got left over from the last bit. Sorry. Okay.
That last voice was yours, by the way, I think, Tom.
Yes. That well.
The best one.
That's my ventriloquist voice. Yeah. Anyway, so okay. The first set of questions actually comes from one person, and there's one for each of us. By the way, Adam Gilson, big fan. First of all, for Jim, what is the hardest, speed-wise, volume-wise, skill-wise? What is the hardest shot you've ever seen? Hardest
shot. I thought you were going to say lover.
Not fastest, but hardest shot.
The hardest, the fastest, maybe and hard. Mark, coming out of your neck of the woods, Marv Puha.
Oh yeah.
Marv well. Marv had he had calves on his legs the size of my torso. And this was a very large man. A powerful man, sweetest man in the world, unless he had a few drinks. Then we all became his toys. But that's a true story. I swear to God, he chased me around the bar one time, just wanted to play with me. But
come back, Jim. Come back.
His pull kick His pull kick, I mean, it was long, it was hard, it was booming. I mean, he would pound that thing. Sometimes you thought maybe that ball was going through the back of the table there. But this was a big, powerful man. Again, the nicest, sweetest gentleman you'd ever want to meet. But boy, when he was on a foosball table, he could hammer that thing. This was a really good player.
Yeah.
Boy, was he powerful. And you know him pretty well.
Dude, Marv. So Marv is he's Hawaiian, Polynesian dude. He's always hovering around 350. But you would not understand the smoothness of that man's game. He has all kinds of finesse. And he played bowling. He bowled at a very high level. He bowled at least 2 perfect games bowling.
Wow.
And he would tell you that, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is he would tell you that foosball made him way more nervous. He was way more prone to choke in foosball. This huge hulking dude, if he had any limitation, it was that the mental part of the game that he didn't. But his pull kick was an open hand fan pull kick, and he used his lateral speed was amazing. His dink had so much finesse, but when he hammered that long pull kick, it was mind rattling. And I've known the guy. He was one of the first people I met playing foosball. Like hit the ball like a beast. The whole table, he had to be careful not to jar and pick up the table every time he shot the ball.
That's what I was wondering. How do you do that? How do you hit it that hard and not jar the table?
You had to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he would recoil too. If he recoiled and he didn't score, it's easily a jar. But if he knew it was going in, it was a mind rattling jar that went along with the recoil and his pull kick. So.
Interesting. Anybody else come to mind? Who comes in second place in that one?
Philbrook.
Yeah, well, our gold friend Billy Pappas, of course, with its snake shot of his, he can put that thing through the back of the goal as well. Ryan Moore hits it pretty hard. And there have been others over the years, and not all of them have necessarily been pro or pro master players. There have been others that have really been able to Mike Philbrook, I recall.
Yep.
From up in New England,
I agree with
his
that
snake shot, could really pound that ball.
Yeah.
Mark?
No kidding.
There were some pull shots, man, in the 90s. There was Hassan Kiani, there was Mark Rudnicki, there was Rick Lucas. These are big dude. Hassan was not a big dude, but these other guys, these guys got fully behind the ball, not unlike Ryan. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Mike Philbrook comes to mind. Sammy Dill, his pull shot, and Billy. Those guys crushed the ball.
No doubt. Wow. Great question.
And oftentimes they have large hands. A lot of these guys who can really hit that ball hard do have these large meat hook hands, right? That can really just swallow that handle and really pound that ball.
Yeah, I noticed that with people like Ron Olson, really tall dude, truck driver dude, just giant hands, and his rollover snake. I mean, he barely balanced the handle on his palm. It was like right on the edge of his palm, not in his wrist, on his palm. And he had long enough hands where all he had to do was just real quick pull that handle over. I mean, it was so fast and so hard.
Mark Puha, number 1 for me.
Oh, yeah, nice, very cool. Well, Mark, you have a question coming from Adam as well, and no, don't kill the messenger. Just this is the question coming from Adam. So
I'm looking forward to this.
So Mark, in all honesty, how good could you have been if you had been good?
So I actually won a tour event I won a pro doubles with Adam Gilson in 05. He's my partner. He's a friend and a good guy.
Can you play some harp music right now? That dream like harp music.
But let me. I talk this smack with my close friends. I talk a lot of smack, and I have for decades. And I will tell you this, and Adam, this is for you, my friend. You want to hear it? I got a table in 89. I stopped practicing in 93. I assure you this, if I had made different life choices and decided to focus on foosball, the one thing I always had over my circle of friends, which is a master group of friends, and some of them will probably be Hall of Famers maybe one day, I had a head game over all of them. So I promise you this, if I had made, I don't have any reluctance saying it, if I had focused on foosball, I'd be a multi-time world champion, a Hall of Famer, and one of the best ever if I had just focused on foosball. I did not. I could say that. I could just say this sheepishly and cowardly. I could just say it. I will never be in the Hall of Fame, but that was a choice I made in 1993.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, I think it's an honest answer. That's a very honest answer.
I've played with Mark. I played with Mark. It's certainly a guy with some talent. Some of which is actually in foosball. No, I mean, and again, Tom, Mark has the kind of mental acuity. He has the sort of focus. He's athletic. So, I think, someone like him, if they were to spend and had that sort of dedication and spend that amount of time on the table early on to develop that, if they were motivated to go after the money or the fame or the trophies or whatever,
the glory,
Mark certainly could have been. He could have been.
You know what? Let me say one more thing before we go forward, Adam, because this is funny to me. Adam Gilson and I played this. It was on what's called the foosball board, and I was not practicing at all, and everyone was getting on my case. There was a bunch of people on the foosball board getting on my case. It was like Karen Quebec at the time, and these guys. And I was going to play with Adam in this tournament, and they said, "Wow, you put your money where your mouth is. Just practice. Just try for this tournament, and stop being such a joker and a coward." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't practice at all, but I focused and we won the tournament. Wow. So it's just kind of like, you know what? There's some, and I left my trophy on the stage.
All right. Left your trophy on the stage. Wait, hold on. You left the trophy on the stage? What?
I didn't like. That's a whole other. That's a whole other thing. I'm an open doubles guy. Pro doubles was like a novelty event. Yeah, we played Rob Atha in the final, but I still didn't. I'm an open doubles guy, so I just thought, we won this pro doubles thing. I didn't even take my trophy home.
Got it. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, by the way, he's also quite arrogant. I just want to let you know that as well.
Hey, I'm a little hot. You can tell I'm a little hot from that question.
Yes.
Peace.
If only tranquility. I could have been.
Well, okay. We got a question for Clay. Clay,
nice.
Are you ready?
Hey,
all right. Yeah. Okay, we need to hear it. Adam wants to know your wildest story outside of foosball.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
Wildest story outside of foosball. Well, I threw a desk at a teacher one time. Not adding to this.
A desk. The whole desk.
Wanted to do that.
What else did I do? I had a copy of my mom's car key made, and so when she was out of town, I had a car that weekend.
Smart.
Wow.
But what else have I done that's crazy? I don't know. I've lived a pretty tame life, to be honest. I haven't done a whole lot of wild stuff.
Okay.
Probably the most, like the craziest thing I've done in recent history is, I like to shoot a slingshot on meatball.
Nice.
So I don't know what you're getting at,
slingshot on meatball.
Yeah, it's as if Adam is suggesting you had some other area in your life that might have been really wild and interesting to others, maybe even to the point of reading a book about it. Who knows? But
I've never read a book about
looking to do, and that's the slingshot on meatball would really be cool.
I don't know, Adam. I don't know who this is. He's blocked me on Facebook, so he doesn't exist to me. He's out of there. Yeah. So if you want to ask a question from another person, I'll gladly. If you wanted to ask from John Doe that same question, I'll gladly talk about all the banks and all that stuff.
Love it. Yeah.
I just like to make things awkward. That's all.
Yeah.
This conversation is the wildest thing I've ever done. No. For those who don't know, all right, I'll talk about it. In 2006-ish, I got a wild hair and decided I was going to be just do some crazy stuff. And among other things, I started robbing banks. So for most of 2006, that's just kind of what I did.
Whoa.
And people like to ask a lot of questions about it. And I am an open book. Like Jem said, I wrote a book. I don't hoard it out, to be honest, but I did write one. I'm happy to talk about it because the end of the story is a good one for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And crime is just the beginning of it. So crime and prison and second chances and all that good stuff that's pretty much what my life is. And foosball and, stats and all the other stuff is just kind of like, it's the dressing that makes it all tolerable, I suppose. But and generally speaking, I'm always down to have that conversation. So, what do you want to know about bank robbery?
It's when you said, among other things, I was a bank robber. That's the stuff I want to hear about.
Yeah, right.
What you mean besides that? The Blue Chip Store, it's called, and I'm going to whore it out a little bit if you want.
Yes.
Is it available still at Amazon? Because it's a great read.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a journey that ended. It's a happy ending. And it's a wonderful, wonderful story.
And that's what Valentine's Day is all about. Happy endings.
So
that's right.
I have a question for you, Clay. Me personally, I'd really like to know when they make the movie of the Blue Chip Store, who is going to play your role? Who would you like to see in your position?
This is it took me a long time to answer this question, and I finally decided that I think Adam Sandler would probably be the perfect person to play me, because he's first of all, he's like normal, in terms of like looks and all that stuff. I don't look like Brad Pitt, because I'm not Brad Pitt, one of those pretty guys. I'm not a pretty guy. And I think Adam Sandler is, I'm pretty silly. Anybody who knows me, I can get pretty silly, but I have all sorts of flavors, inside the old brain. So they all come out at different times. And I think Adam Sandler could play them all.
Yeah.
Very
Sandler's
well.
He's done some great work as a serious actor as well.
Right.
So
one of the movies that hit me the hardest, and it was actually during 2006, is a movie that he did called Click. And that was, funny enough, it was one of the things that really made me kind of start looking at life and being like, dude, what the hell is going on here? Like, what am I doing? I got to get my crap together. And there were a whole lot of other things to go with it. But no, to answer your question, I think Adam Sandler would be just, plus I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and Saturday Night Live back then was Dana Carvey and Farley and all those guys, and Sandler. And that was just, I don't know. I really think very highly of him, not only as a funny guy, but just as a good actor. So
sure,
if I could pick, dude, that's who it would be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love that answer.
And since Robin Williams has passed away, I think that would probably be my pick as well for him.
Yeah. He has a lot of energy. He has had a lot of energy, I should say, which I don't always. But
early on,
I would go
there
for
was
that too.
certain reasons for that energy early on. But yeah, I think later on, his energy.
Are you saying he was a foosball player, Tom?
I think he might have been. In another life, possibly.
Hey, Tom, did Adam have a question for you as well?
He did. And this is going to be a little more serious, and I don't know how I'm going to answer this necessarily without your assistance. So stand by. But here we go. Adam wants to know, what is the most important thing for foosball's survival and quote unquote hopefully growth going forward, and why? Okay. The single most important thing, I got to say, is just making foosball more accessible. That's my short answer there. But there's a lot to that when it comes to making it more accessible. I mean, for people that are just getting into it, but also make it more successful for those who are at the top. Does that make any sense?
It does. I think that's a great way of putting it. We really have to caretake the young players, the beginning players, and I think the club system will help with that, to bring them in without turning them away too quickly. I know I used to use the analogy that, and this was probably in the 90s, but a young player comes to a tornado tournament or an open tournament and faces Terry Moore and Bob Diaz in the first or second round and just gets killed and never plays again.
Right. Yeah.
We got to bring those players in. We got to make it accessible for them. We have to show them what it's about, but not too soon. Let's let them play against equal competition. But again, we also need to have the heroes, and we need to have those top players to identify with and to educate us.
Yep.
As well. So I thought your answer was quite good.
Okay. I mean, you look back in the heyday, there was baseball cards for players, the top players. I thought that was pretty cool. And I'm wondering, of course, that was during the tournament soccer era.
No, those cards were created in 1995 by Brendan Flaherty and I.
Really?
And these were from the glory years of the 90s. Yeah, it was really cool to kind of celebrate these. I think it was 36 different cards that we created, and to celebrate these individuals and these moments in foosball. And another way, as you say, of sort of opening it up and in a more normal sport kind of fashion. And maybe these are some things we can look at in the future as well.
Yeah, I like that. No, it's I think the other thing that I've often thought about, because of the and Mark has mentioned this many times, is the involvement of the audience and getting charged up and cheering and being rooting for your team or your player. How about the idea that was really kind of shall we say, kicked off by someone like Johnny Horton, who kind of would, arrive with an entourage and, kind of had this showmanship about his entrance into the arena. Just kind of, I don't know, we don't necessarily have to go that far necessarily, but, nicknames or names that we create for various players. I mean, back in the heyday of, championship wrestling, it was George the Animal Steel and Chief Jay Strongbow. Maybe some of the top players taking on some kind of persona, this kind of thing.
You can do that with brands. I actually know there are foozers out there that have a logo, and with that logo, they have an identity, and there's inherent loyalties to have people buy your shirt. Are they're fans of you? I think that's an important thing. I have talked about it quite a bit. I'm not big on any contrivances. I don't need any fake creations. But if people want to brand themselves, they'd be smart to humanize themselves for an audience. They'd be smart to have their personality shine through whatever that personality is. And if they want to exaggerate it for the sake of foosball celebrity, that's fine too. That's your prerogative. That won't be everybody's thing, but it helps differentiate those players that want to be known for something or visible for something. And there are foosball players that go to lengths, whether it's organic or not. And I think we have a couple. We talked about two of them today. Tommy Atkinson, a chatterbox who's witty and funny and keeps it above board and undirected, and that's his way. Steve Murray, just a fire, like a fireball, man, like on fire, like pour gasoline on fire. And that's another thing, really attractive to that type of style of play. The fans, the spectators are. Anyway, there's ways to do that are organic to the sport, that aren't contrived. And for those people that do want to have an exaggerated personality in foosball, God bless them too. We could use all of it to bring some personality to the sport.
I mean, we're living in the age of and we're living in the age of branding. Everybody's talking about how do you brand yourself. When I look on LinkedIn these days, it's like career coaches. It's a big deal. It's like, okay, you've got to brand yourself. How do you brand you? What you're a product. So maybe in foosball, we need to kind of take a little bit more of an attitude like that.
Yeah,
possibly.
For sure. And by the way, Tom and Clay, and when Mark enters the inside foods booth, he also has an entourage. It's usually like Fernando De Rosa on one side and Mario Aragonello on the other as they help him up the steps into the booth. And back behind him, or off to the side, is Louis Cartwright, mopping his brow and massaging his shoulders, getting him ready. Smelling salt's always available as well. So no, Mark Torres also really likes to put on a show as he enters the inside.
So he's an old hat at this. Yeah. So
can you picture Louis in that role? Is Louis not the perfect cornerman? Come on.
Huge. I mean, good, great, awesome. Yes.
You got to have your supporters. Okay. So what do you say we move on to another question here? We have
thank God.
Nick.
Yeah.
I saved you. How about Nick Fury wants to know, are we playing a sport or a game? Is it a sport? Is foosball a sport or a game? What say you, Jim?
Yeah, it's easy. That's an easy one. I mean, obviously it is a game, but it's a sport as well. Anybody who plays the game at the highest level knows it's a sport. People who argue against it like to say, well, they're not running and they're not jumping and they're not, doing these things and et cetera. Well, foosball players, let's take everything down to miniature. The movement, the muscle movement, the having to think quickly on the spot, facing someone who's 2 feet away from you, battling them under supreme circumstances. For me, and especially I think the way that we have packaged it over the years, unquestionably to me, foosball is a sport. Mark?
Yeah, I it's a philosophical question, really, because I think it depends on. I mean, at some level, it's a craft, it's a hobby, and at its highest levels, it's an art. And so we talk about defining things and just not throwing superlatives out there, but an art is bringing meaning to matter. And I would argue that certain matches of Rico playing Tony in the final, or Billy playing Fred, or Todd, what he does at a high level of mastery, what's going on in these masters' minds, what's happening, all the calculations, all the permutations, and the reaction time. We're talking about elevating it from a game to a sport to an art. And I think easily a sport at the highest levels, easily a sport. At the absolute peak of performance, it's an art, like anything else. And I would argue in many cases it is as or more demanding as any sport out there.
Oh, I think that's correct.
Any sport.
Power, stamina. You have to have the stamina to survive these weekends.
But
Mark, Michael Jordan was an artist. Magic Johnson, an artist. Ken Griffey Jr. These are artists who are playing a sport. No question.
And what makes foosball very, very unique And so my analogy for this is I used to work in all different types of anatomy and surgery, and now I work with ophthalmologists that do microsurgery. And microsurgery happens in millimeter size incisions, and there's a membrane in the eye that's we're talking about very, very small spaces. And so the margin of error can be incredibly small with foosball, like millimeters difference in winning or losing a match. Shooting a dead bar shot and rimming the corner is probably a millimeter of difference of the ball going in or flying out. And so the decisions that are made with the speed, the accuracy, the performance that it takes to execute, I would argue that in some ways that type of precision is higher in foosball than most other sports, where you could throw a football towards someone and they could leap toward it and catch it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to deny the athleticism necessary to jump in the air and catch a foosball. But imagine if your window to catch that foosball was a 2 millimeter net to grab a 2 millimeter fly. We're talking about foosball has its place to be respected as a sport for sure.
Yeah, and the debate has been raging now, of course, how do we get it into the Olympics? And of course, they're looking at this in Europe and other parts of the world. Why not? I mean, if you're going to turn poker into an Olympic competition, foosball should go first. I think that's a foregone conclusion. Well, in the immortal words of Chevy Chase, is it a floor wax or is it a dessert topping? Hey, it's both.
Well, is that Chevy Chase doesn't get quoted on this show quite often enough. One of the great philosophers.
Or was that from what's it called? What's the name of the movie?
Saturday Night Live. That's not.
I thought it was National.
No, it's one of his commercials, but no.
Yeah, National Lampoon's Vacation, of course. He was marvelous. Some of which was filmed right here in Durango, by the way.
Really? Now there's an interesting tidbit. Never heard of that.
Fake stat. It's a fake stat.
Fake stat.
No, it's a real stat. Right downtown here at the Strater Hotel, at a local car dealership, and then coming into town on a mountain road. There you go.
Very cool. Wow, I have to go back and watch that scene now.
Whoa.
All right, let's move on.
Whatever.
Our thanks to Nick for that provoking question.
Thank you, Nick.
How about this one? Michael Cleone wants to know, has anyone ever opened a foosball school in the United States?
Maybe back in the day when they had essentially halls where people like Tom Spear and Bowers, they had a bunch of tables inside. I don't know if it's a school technically, but there's a bunch of tables in there where kids go in there and masters take them under their wing and try to inspire them and compel them to keep playing and competing. I don't know about an academic institution, but I do believe those do exist overseas. Jim, why don't you?
Well, we're talking, let's not forget about our good friend John O'Brien, who I guess you could say in the afternoon, after school, these kids are going to foosball school, aren't they?
Yes.
In these after-school programs for Foosball Clubs USA. I also heard of a program down in the Jacksonville, Florida area where they had a foosball academy that, taught by some of their local pros and experts that did produce a few young players, beginner players, and rookie players who are still apparently playing down there. So these sorts of things have been tried. But I think the best example is what John O'Brien has done with Foosball Clubs USA, creating these after-school programs and literally foosball classes for these young kids.
Yeah.
We'll say that we know in China, there are at least 18 schools with 18 foosball coaches.
Wow.
In China. Yeah, we know that. They have a big tournament out there. So a school, not necessarily a school, but classes. Yeah, it's crazy.
Can you picture that? I know a few years ago, China became an official sport, or foosball became an official sport in China. I had a chance to go to China and kind of see the results of that. And in a tournament we did in 2017 for the Guardian table, there were 150 kids there, all of whom could shoot snake shots, all of whom had brush passes or at least a wall lane series. And had been taught by these coaches or using video or whatever. Of course, it's the Chinese approach, right, to producing athletes, et cetera. So these things do exist, and maybe it's something we can look at in the future, especially as the sport grows, which we anticipate it will.
Oh yeah.
And we can sort of begin with the kids, but even then, I mean, what Tony Spradam and Brandon Moreland have done of late to teach on an individual basis. And I think that's something we can look forward to in the future, that perhaps we're going to see a little bit more of that kind of thing as the sport grows.
Which would be awesome.
It will.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Fantastic. Well, okay. Here's another one. I guess you'd say it's an opinion question, but Fade Gobran, I believe is pronounced, wants to know, how do you all feel about including an open roto event in major tournaments? Now, a roto event, for those who don't know what that is.
First of all, I can assure you, you botched that name, but go ahead. Please ignore
I'm
it.
sure he did. Yeah. I'm sure he did. Fadi? Gobran?
No,
okay.
I think you got it pretty much right. Fadi's a Southern California foosball player. Yeah.
This part of the conversation is the best part.
Amen. So he's asking, what about doing an open roto event? Now, for those who don't know what an open roto event would be, what is that exactly?
Basically, it's generally the way it works is one player starts at forward, the other starts at goalie, and when you score as a team, you rotate, right? The goalie moves to forward, forward moves to goalie.
Yeah, I played that.
So both players ideally need to be good at both positions, and we've all done it. We call it switch point, we call it roto, we call it whatever. Mostly in pickup games. But it's kind of a neat idea. It kind of takes away maybe that big, powerful forward a little bit as they move back to goalie or whatever, evens the playing field, or allows more versatile players to be successful. But it's a lot of fun. It's something that my wife insists that we do oftentimes. Happy Valentine's Day, love. And so, Mark, your thoughts on it?
I was totally distracted. I was looking at the questions.
Hey, hold on. There's a show going on here.
What was the
Roto? Roto event.
Yeah, I did hear the question. I think it's fine.
Thanks for your contributions, Mark. Next question.
We need an open roto, a women's roto, an amateur roto, a beginner roto, a junior roto, a senior roto, a classic roto. No, whatever. Yeah, have fun. Good job. Move on. Thank you. Love you.
Okay.
Right.
So
it's the most respectful answer I've ever heard in my life.
Another thing, one of the things, and I think some of the idea behind this, oftentimes it's a mixed doubles event where the woman then gets to play a little forward, kind of in a designated mixed fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all for roto mixed doubles. That's about it.
Roto mixed. Okay.
That's cool.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been talking about, including classic. The last time we talked about classic events, in other words, where you can't shoot the, the rollover snake. But classic,
here's an event I threw that it's similar to this kind of, not a novelty. I don't like that idea. I threw an event where it's designated pro-am. The amateur plays forward for a pro. The pro has to play goalie. The pro had a lower entry fee. However, they knew a month out who they were going to play against. So the pro had a responsibility to coach the amateur to prepare for the event.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about, right there.
Well, this is 2021, and a month out doesn't work with anything anymore.
Seriously.
That's right.
Yeah. We have no idea.
And Roto also, allows you, maybe to see some interesting matchups as well, so.
Okay. All right. Well, we do have another question. If you'd like to field this one. Yeah, right.
Falling off the wagon, dude.
Todd Huggins would like
if
to
you
know.
Could remove any man from the foosball table from any rod, which man would it be?
I would remove two. Actually, I wouldn't remove them. I would make them go 45 degrees upward.
Ooh,
those two wing players on the 3-0. Because how many times does it go off that man and go in? Boy, it's frustrating.
Right.
I say 180 degrees would make more sense, but I get what you're saying.
Question for Jim: what is the world's fastest land animal?
My son would tell me that's the cheetah. But the peregrine falcon actually flies much faster.
You actually did it. You did it.
Oftentimes.
Tom, please save us.
Back to you, Tom.
Okay, here's one. How about this? Top 5 best finishes by a couple, married or dating. Top 5 best finishes by a couple, married or dating.
Do we know if Jeep and Tina Roton ever hooked up? That's a big one, right?
That's a good one. Yeah. I think she was married to Mr. Roton at the time. But that doesn't mean no. Obviously the Murrays, come immediately to mind once again. They were number 1 on my list. I have to say the fact that you can win 4. And here's the biggest one to me: that 1993 World Championship win for Steve and Gina Murray. Tommy Atkinson had won open singles. Tommy Atkinson had won open doubles, looking to triple. And the last man to triple before that, the only man to triple before that, was Steve Murray. And who do Tommy and his partner play in the mixed doubles final? Steve and Gina Murray, who double dipped them and came back and won that championship in 1993. So for me, that maybe is the premier performance ever from a couple in a big event.
Wow.
That just goes to show you how with the mean streak that Steve Murray has, because Tommy looked up to Steve as a mentor and basically idolized Steve, and Steve was like, kid. It was the hottest weekend for Tommy. Tommy was in fuego. He had a brush down, you couldn't stop, and then his lane pass, and he would switch between his pull shot and his rollover. It was just obscene. He was winning everything, smashing people. And Steve's like, not this time, son. I'm the last person to triple, and you will not triple. Not on the best weekend in your life are you going to beat me and my wife. And that's what happened. He beat him, double dipped. It's hilarious.
No kidding.
So good. Yeah.
Wow, that would qualify. Yeah, absolutely.
We had a good answer for that one.
Yeah. No question. Yeah. Well, I mean, if by the way, if you're listening to FoosTalk Live, and it is Valentine's Day evening, and we're celebrating the love of foosball, if you have a question you'd like to have answered by our esteemed panel, Jim, Mark, or Clay, or myself, you can certainly type it into the Podbean Live app, or you can call us directly. Yeah, just give us a shout, and we'd certainly like to field your questions.
Yeah, we'd love to have a phone call. That would be a lot of fun to have somebody call in and ask us, challenge us,
Right. So, here's a question: any famous divorces resulting from foosball?
Oh boy! Well, here I'm going to give you a story. All right,
dude, this is funny part. I was actually going to say that as a joke, and I had not balls.
I'm not 100% sure that this ended in a divorce, but back in the 1990s, right before we were streaming, at the World Championships, we would run our video feed up into the hotel.
Oh, Lord.
And, it'd be on channel 12 or whatever that designated channel on your hotel TV was. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people would go up to their rooms to watch matches, to hear us commentate and see the big action from table one.
Cool.
And I recall between matches down in the pit area one time, there was an individual, a male individual, who was on table one, where we also had a microphone on the table. And he was ogling a lovely woman sitting in the bleachers and being quite explicit about how much he was enjoying her presence. And upstairs in the room, taking care of Junior, was the wife, watching this and monitoring things. And not sure where it headed, but I know for a while it was not a pretty situation. I don't know that it finalized itself in divorce, but it was very uncomfortable for that gentleman, obviously, for quite a long time after that.
Brutal.
So
that's truly
Mark,
brutal.
I'm sure you're being the reporter that you are, the tabloid reporter that you can be. I'm sure you've got a better answer than that.
No, I could think of. I don't want to say names, man, because these are people. They're friends.
How about pseudonyms?
There's absolutely one marriage I can think of, at least one, where the wife ended up with another master. But even more interesting though is this. Not more interesting, but trying to change the subject. Actually,
Let me tell you about the North American snail, actually.
The flight of the peregrine
North American snail.
The penguin. So
the what? Huh?
The mics on those tables were like treacherous, man, because no one thought of it. So yeah, the tables were mic'd, and upstairs it was piping into the room, and masters would finish matches and they just start yapping. They talk like someone would walk away and they talk so much crap. You would hear them talking about how their goalie failed them, or some tell, or just and you just sit there and listen to it, cringing because you couldn't tell them to shut up. That you're being piped.
It happens to
the entire
this day,
hotel.
buddy.
Yeah, the whole hotel is getting piped to the whole. So those mics were treacherous, and I still remember looking down, just talking smack and looking down and thinking, "Holy crap, this is getting piped across 400 hotels." Anyone who wants to listen could listen to what's happening.
They've done that in golf as well. I mean, golf, they've mic'd the players and their caddies and discussing what they're going to do in the next shot and stuff. And there's been a few quote unquote moments that slipped through the
Tiger
censors.
Woods alone has had about 15 of those moments on Mike, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Wow.
Oh, if you listen to one of our other episodes, you'll hear Tom York sitting down as he uses the toilet.
Right. It's one of our greatest bloopers.
But it has happened, and actually a couple others occurred to me as we were talking, again, not naming names, but one girl spent some time with another gentleman that was not her gentleman. Anyway, we're not going to go there, but it has happened, and it does happen, and it's real life.
That was on table
that
one.
In the real
Table
world probably
one.
happens in the foosball world as
Oh
Oh man, this is degrading. Okay, so let's field another question which just came through here. Who is the most eligible bachelor in foosball currently?
some music for that.
Oh yes, of course.
Need a little dating
We
game
definitely need
Most
that.
eligible bachelor on the
I know who the most eligible one on this podcast is.
Yeah, there you go.
Clay Toomey.
Clay Toomey,
For now.
yeah.
Gentlemen.
Yes.
There you go.
Wow.
The legendary felon up for grabs, Clay Toomey.
Chicks dig it, man. They do.
It all worked
dig
out,
it.
man. It all
Chicks
worked out.
dig stats.
Chicks dig stats.
All right, so we're all struggling to come up with
Blake
one here.
Blake
obviously.
Robertson,
Blake
There
Robertson.
you go.
Okay. I
Billy
like that.
Pappas.
Billy Pappas.
Pappas. That might be
Right.
number one.
Okay.
Rob
Yeah.
Atha.
Well, Rob Atha.
Yeah.
Rob Atha.
Wow. And
Mr.
how are
European Union.
Are these guys,
Mm-hmm.
staying single by choice? I mean, that's another
Wait, I
question.
didn't know Atha was
Yes.
single.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, maybe no. He's like dating someone right now. You guys want to get on his Facebook real quick and ask him? We could just do that.
We can-
Yeah, let's get him. Let's get him on here right now.
It's like, come on.
It's
Fork
it's
over.
oh my god o'clock in the UK right now.
Yeah, right. Well, Reese
He's not
Roberts
listening,
doesn't
so we
seem
can
to
talk
care.
about him.
Reese
We can
Roberts
say
is from
whatever we
England.
want.
He's listening in. I mean, come on. No, it's no. I think that's a very
Rob
valid
in the
question.
continent of Europe.
Yeah. So okay.
Jeez.
I don't want to go there. Never mind. I was just going to ask something, but I'm not going to do it. Never mind.
Too late. You go for it. Let's go. Can't get any worse than this.
No. It's no. We're going to really go off the rails if I do this. But anyway,
Just take it off the road, dude. We were a dumpster fire for like 20 minutes at least.
Rails are the most overrated things in all of foosball.
Okay. I guess it's after 10. That makes according to the FCC, you can say certain things you wouldn't say before 10 o'clock at night. So
We put the F in FCC. What do you got?
I'm going to ask the question: who is the best dressed foosball player?
The best what?
Best dressed
Best
foosball. Yeah.
Oh,
best
I heard
dressed
totally
foosball
different
player.
continent than that.
I got the wrong continent. What?
I'm ready to have that conversation as
best
well. I was just
dressed-
surprised
There was
that he
a
asked.
Foosball
as well.
player that
Best dressed.
the most
Well, I don't think that's what
comments.
you were
Blake?
nervous to ask, but
Well, you go first, buddy.
Probably Blake.
best
Rob.
dressed? I don't know, man.
this is a loaded question here.
Blake probably. I don't know. It's by default because I think Blake's the only one who cares.
Well, no,
Okay.
it's an easy one. I mean, it's not one, it's two. It's Dave Gummison and Tracy McMillan.
No, that's true.
Right.
No question about it.
Right.
Those two guys
Okay.
have always made an effort to dress the same, right down to the shoes.
Wait a second.
And
I
the
got
tan.
one better than that. If
And
you go,
and they
really
have
far
they've
back.
always made a concerted effort to look good on camera, and they do.
Oh,
Clay,
yeah.
Go ahead, Clay. What do you got?
Gummison and I think it was Swan. Was it Donna
Yeah,
Swan
the
when
tiger
they
shirts.
when they
Yeah.
dressed up as tigers? And
Yeah.
by the way, this is in the collection. Definitely go find this video where they play Tommy and Murray.
Yep.
And
Really?
Gummy and Swan were like growling at each other after goals and like getting into each face. And there's a moment, and then Tommy and Steve, the last two people that you're going to get under their skin with noise, they score and they start yelling at each other. So highly recommend finding that in the archives.
Love it.
Totally worth it.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's great. So what about the most creative foosballer? Who's the most creative foosballer? In
Johnny
this
Horton
weekend?
wore a shower curtain at one of the. Wait, that's
Yeah.
pretty.
What is this,
The disco
Halloween?
ball. The disco ball shirt.
I don't know that this question means how they dress, though. I mean, maybe on the table. Who is the most creative on the table?
We could,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
we can answer it that
I
way.
mean,
yeah.
Colin Young, certainly an artist on the table. Maybe even someone like Justin Shaw, who does everything very
Unorthodox.
differently. You know, he does everything differently. Probably shouldn't teach anybody to do it that way, but he's good at what he does. Very creative
if that's what we want to call it.
Yeah.
There've been a lot of players.
James Castillo uses like 80s and 90s stuff, little weird, eccentric things. Justin's unorthodox. Clay's described this game to me, and I watched you do. Clay, you're a little creative. You're a little interesting.
We'll throw it off
on the table.
Yeah, I'll throw Clay in there as well. Yeah.
Actually, I beat Sparky with some of that creativity.
Reese Roberts, our loyal listener from the United Kingdom, there suggests Massimo Caruso, he's an Italian style player who has kind of crossed over, become a multi-table player to some degree, because most Italians only play Italian style, which is high speed. And Caruso, absolutely an artist on the table, tries some different things really very successfully, kind of like in a Justin Shaw sort of way, but probably with a little more athleticism to it. So from an international perspective, I love that. I love that answer.
You know who doesn't get credit though? Like Alfredo doesn't get credit, but that dude, he thinks about foosball differently than other people.
Yep.
And he imagines the game in angles and in dimensions and he probably does it to self-entertain and stay interested as much as anything, but something tells me he's always done that. So I'd say Lafredo probably is one of the most creative players, looking for that extra edge against a specific competition, and in the broad sense, doing weird stuff like figuring out ways to hit it at a certain pace to pass it off the opposing 5-bar, shooting a certain spot to get you to block it so he could shoot another spot, just kind of stuff I could never do because I don't have that kind of flexibility. So I'd say Lafredo's right there.
No, that's a great one. And he can do a good tic-tac. He does all these different things. He'll shoot a front pin at times, and absolutely he is underrated in that as well, for sure. Very creative player.
I think Ryan Moore is the most creative player right now.
Yeah.
Really?
That could be as well.
Yeah, because if you ever watch him play singles, if he's playing, and it doesn't matter who it is, like I think it was 2016 Texas State Open Singles Final when he played against Tony, just this free ball and it was. I always point people to that match for several reasons, but creativity is another one. Ryan is first of all, he's a freak. He can do anything. He can see something, try it, and probably have it in like 2 or 3 tries. No matter what it is. And he's creative in the sense that it's like really difficult. Like Justin Shaw is like, I mean, it's just weird. Like he just does weird stuff, but there's nothing that I've ever seen him do that I went, wow, that was creative. It's more like, oh, what a weirdo. Why are you wearing your glasses upside down? I mean, is that creative or weird? It's just weird. Whereas Ryan Moore is doing stuff, and that's no disrespect to Justin Shaw. He would probably take that as a compliment, to be honest. And he might start wearing his glasses upside down and shirts inside out. Who knows? There's no telling. But with Ryan, he's doing things that are like technically hard, but also like creative and like, wow, I would have never even thought that was a thing that you could do. And then, by the way, he does it at the speed of light. Like it's just his abilities are crazy. And he's also a lot of fun to watch. If he's having fun, if he cares, if the gas factor is intact, he's super creative and just like he's trying to bring you along for this like fun ride that he's on. So
cool.
I would always say probably in my opinion, I think Ryan's in that.
I think that's a great call. And I think really that's what I've come around to based on your argument right there. And he very well could be the most creative player in the world. And a lot of that is because he demands that he has fun. He is not a super competitive guy. That's not his primary focus. It's to have fun. Obviously, all of that becomes competitive, but he has really put on some amazing shows over the years.
Mm-hmm. And I recall his sense of humor when we had him on FoosTalk Live this last year. I mean, just, he likes to laugh. He just likes to have, he's just that kind of person.
Yeah, that's his MO. He wants to have fun. And like, there's probably one tournament of the whole year that he actually cares about, and that's Worlds. And other than that, the primary goal is to have fun.
Yeah.
And he frog stomps pretty much everybody and just having fun, by the way.
Frog stomp.
But well, I don't know. There's probably a better word for it.
I love that. No, that's great.
Very great.
But yeah, that's old. That's the name of a Silverchair record from the 90s. But
frog stomp.
Yeah. But
Mark, are you still with us?
I was thinking, who's the least creative but was the most successful?
Oh. But
I mean,
played by the rules,
right away. Terry Moore. Yeah, Terry Moore comes to mind right away.
Play basically by the same game every single time without getting two off the track and just one.
Like 2 passes from the same spot and the rollover from. If anything, people underestimate Terry's defensive goalie, and his shooting from goalie is why he won open single majors. But there wasn't even a lot of creativity to that.
Yeah,
it's a pull shot or a push shot and push.
Yeah, he was a machine.
Yeah.
But definitely accurate.
boring to watch. And then Tom Spear, Steve Morey, but like Tom Spear was another guy. Yeah, Steve Morey. Oh my God, he would kill you with boredom.
Here's a good.
Go ahead.
No, here's a good suggestion from someone listening. Tony Bacon. Now think about his 5-row. Think about how the things that guy could do on the 5-row by tapping it off the wall, getting it moving slowly, that brush up, brush down towards the wall. As far as 5-rows go, obviously Tony Sprayed have been super creative on the 5 as well. But Bacon, boy, when his 5-row, when you were watching it, you knew you were watching an artist at work. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, but like, of course, Bacon, but how about like someone like Spear, who didn't even seem to have as much talent as Bacon?
Yeah.
Like Spear, when he won open singles, not the 93, like when he was getting the finals of open doubles, or when he won with Gus, he had 2 passes, and it was 80% a brush down that was a snail, and the brush up just looked exactly like it, and he froze people. Yeah, he could pass on 1 or on 10. You guys heard me. He was my number 1 5-bar. Funny, there was a post in Facebook where Frederic said that Spear's 5-bar was the best 5-bar he'd ever seen. I took a picture of it and posted it, but it was because defensive 5 matters. So Spear had an incredible defensive 5, but Spear had essentially 2 passes and they couldn't be stopped. So, yeah,
very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be dramatic to be effective.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
Like that.
I think like Morey and Spear and even Bacon to a certain extent. I think some people just got so tired of fighting. They were beaten mentally, exhausted by the thought of competing with them. It's like, I remember specifically Steve Morey beating Lafredo when Lafredo was in his prime, probably 2 or 3 times, at least once in singles. And Lafredo gave up. He's like, I just can't do this. I would rather, Lafredo's like, I'd rather give myself a root canal than sit here and try to block your 5-bar any longer. I just want out of this match. And he would lose.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could have probably told Todd you could just go to a dentist, but Todd is a guy that likes to do things himself. So giving himself a root canal may be something he has done a time or 2.
Oh yeah.
Play my phone.
Here's a question.
I was just about to say that. You're onto yourself.
Hey, Mark Torres. Shifting gears. I've got a question for Mark Torres. Mark, I don't know, early 2000s, someone comes to me and they said, and I don't remember who it was, could have been Lewis Cartwright, could have been somebody. They said, there's this guy from Northern California, Mark Torres, who we think would be a really, really good color man, a guy that could work with you, Jim, in the booth. And I said, well, of course, I'll try anybody once, And so Mark came up and worked with me, and was immediately, I was just super impressed with his knowledge and with his delivery and with his humor, etc. But what is it? Because I'm a lead guy, right? I'm a play-by-play guy. What is it for you that is so creatively satisfying when you're doing analysis or being a color man on these broadcasts? And I know you enjoy it. I know you embrace it. And sometimes, it is, when you and I are working together, it's really high quality artistic stuff, right? But what is it in your mind? What is it that attracted you initially? And what is it that satisfies you creatively, working in the booth with, whether it's me or just doing analysis or working behind the mic?
I like being random. I like being unfiltered. I think unfiltered to a fault, even where, frankly, professionally over time, it has only been time and seasoning and maturity that has prevented me from getting in more trouble professionally, because I don't have a natural filter. So I find myself having to filter myself, and that's a difficult thing for me to do. And like, it's difficult. So I've had to learn that. But foosball is like a canvas for both of us, Jim. For you, I know what it is for you, and how your thought process and how you organize the description of the match. And for me, it's an opportunity to play on that canvas as well. And where you're like coordinating and directing, I get to splash paint and I get to jump in wherever I want. And it was, remember, in the very beginning, it wasn't clean. I mean, I would trample on you, and I had to learn a lot of different things. There's a lot of different technique things that we had to learn working together. So I guess the answer to the question is, I love just talking and adding color and participating. I love foosball. I love the seat. I'm elevated. I get to look.
He's not going to stop until somebody makes him.
Yeah, I get to throw paint on the canvas while you figure out how it should look. and I
You're
love
a little
that.
Jackson Pollock. You are kind of Jackson Pollock-ish on there for sure.
Yeah,
Jackson
man.
Pollock. That's yeah. Everybody's got to have a Jackson Pollock, though. I mean, if you don't,
for sure.
Well, okay. Let's go back to some philosophical questions here when it comes to foosball. Here's one for you. Now you guys know about the big battle that's been going on for years when it comes to comic book fans. Batman versus Superman, right? So Batman versus Superman. First of all, first half of the question. In foosball, who would play Batman and who would play Superman?
This is all yours, Mark.
I wrote I wrote a piece for Jim. Jim was doing Inside Foos, the bulletin, and I wrote a whole piece, and I compared different foosers to different heroes, Marvel, DC and Marvel heroes. Cool. I think it was DC. Yeah, and this was funny because I had Frederic as Superman, but I had Todd Lafredo as Batman. And I had Todd Lafredo as beating Superman because Todd Lafredo would have a kryptonite bullet. He'd have a kryptonite bullet. And so if you know the lore,
you'd save it till that last ball.
Save it. So we're talking about if we had Frederic and Todd in their primes. Once again, and these guys played so many times too, and it was sad because we won't get into the weeds of it. But these guys were friends, and they did goofy stuff, and they split in certain places that are kind of not great for the sport. And Jim, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's leave that. Let's put that to the side. Here's the deal: in the comic book lore, and they've even made a movie out of it recently. In the comic book lore, there's the Justice League, and Batman has a way to assassinate every single superhero. Right. He has a way to kill Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the Flash. He has a kryptonite bullet for Superman, and he holds that, and he doesn't tell anybody. Just this is his way to protect the world from these guys if they go south. So in my story I wrote for Jim, Todd Lafredo has a kryptonite bullet, and Frederic is Superman, and Todd Lafredo knows when he has to pull out that bullet, he could take Frederic out, and that's my whole story.
Interesting.
Isn't it amazing that Batman, a mere mortal, can be in the top two? Is that cool?
That is cool.
Batman is Lafredo is probably the second greatest player of all time. Is Batman, but he's the second greatest player of all time. What does that tell you? Yeah, he has no superpowers, right?
Right. And a cool car, though. Really cool car. But
he does, yeah.
Wow. Well, philosophically speaking, though, I guess you can kind of compare foosball to that sort of a universe, really.
Actually, though, Ray Cordova tells us that Todd actually drives a Ford Focus, so he is apparently not Batman. Okay.
What, a Lamborghini? What's up with that?
There's some things in life you never need to know, and the fact that Todd drives a Ford
Toddy
Focus
Maserati
is one of those.
drives a Ford. Wow, dude! Nothing against
Knock
Fords,
him down.
but
That's not bad, man. Knock him down.
No, and I remember that article you wrote, Mark, and in fact, you awarded a few other foosball players with alter egos, so to speak, of superheroes, and it was a really good article. And I need to dredge that up and find it and republish it because it was really well written, of course, it was really interesting and pretty much spot on.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, Jim, now that you're talking about, great articles. So when it comes to the ultimate foosball article, who would you choose to write about? And what would the title of the story be?
Is this a question you just created, or is this someone asking this?
No, this is me. This is me now.
That's a good one. For me, as someone who loves the epic, right? I love stories that take us from when people were young and into their older age, and to see their journey and the process of maturing and wisening. The Lord of the Rings, or so many of these great epic stories. For me, it would be the history of foosball from the beginning, and really breaking it down and kind of and bringing a little Shakespeare into it. Yes. And a little James Michener as well into it, and creating this epic novel that takes us down the road to where we are today, and to where maybe we can go moving forward. And so for me, the title, Mark, I'm going to leave the title up to you, because every good writer needs an editor. In this case, I'm leaving it to Mark. But something, something epic, with great vision. Sort of a shot in widescreen for sure, And something that really talks about the journey of foosball from its infancy to where it is now, because as documented in the movie Foosballers, it's a fascinating story. And even those that we talk to overseas in Europe and in Asia look at the United States and look at the history of it and shake their head as if it is, this is a movie, this is a novel, the stories of the 1970s and the players on the road and the big money and then the crash and then the rebuild in the 80s. And then suddenly this guy Currington comes in and creates this new thing for the 90s. And Johnny Lott's in there somewhere in whatever role he plays, a Gollum sort of thing. And then taking it up to the modern day and what has happened and where we've been at for the last 15, 20 years and what potentially is going to happen here soon.
Sure.
And so for me, it is an epic story. It's a novel, and maybe it's even 3, maybe it's a trilogy. The Lord of the Foos or whatever.
Lord of the Foos. There we go.
Short, tight, and sweet. It's War and Peace, the Iliad epic of Gilgamesh of the King James version of the Bible of foosball.
There you go. Right? This has been done.
Really tight, turning it into an acronym, whatever that acronym is.
Now, here's the thing, though, guys. In every great epic novel or great tale ever told, there's evil and there's good. I mean, there's yin and yang. I mean, what is the evil of foosball and what is the good of foosball? What say ye?
The evil of foosball is money, and the good of foosball is money.
Wait. Hold on. Time out.
Oh, I'm taking notes here. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, that's not an answer. Sorry.
It's so good, though. War and Peace, the Iliad of the Epic of Gilgamesh, the King James version of the Bible of foosball.
How does he even remember that? How did he remember it a second time?
Idea.
That's brilliant.
No idea.
You know what? I would love to see us. This is what I want. I want my stories to have endings. So I would love Ken Alwell to start practicing and go to the ITSF and win a World Cup. And then I want to do the Ken Alwell story.
Wow.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
That would be brilliant. Yeah.
All right. Well, I
That's
mean,
what I want.
What a journey he's been on, and he was there right at the beginning. Now that would be great, Ken. If you're listening, start practicing. We need you on at least the senior team over there in France in 2022.
So
yes,
Ken Alwell's a great example. I mean, Joe Hessling has told the story of 6 players. I mean, if you were going to do the Foosballers movie Part 2, I know he's mentioned that he'd like to do another version of that documentary, but this time include Europe and really kind of focus on European or other parts of the world, which I think is wonderful. But how about you guys personally? What do you think should be Part 2 of let's say the Foosballers the movie?
I think should be focused solely on 5-bar stats.
5-bar stats. Yes.
Thank you,
Clay. Thank you, Clay. How about you, Mark?
Well, I think it would be fitting if it was European for sure. Why not? There is an incredible story to be told out there. There's all kinds of stories to be told out there. I'm not sure who gets followed, and I don't know. I think it's got to be global. If it can be, it would be global.
Sure.
And what are you gonna do? Follow the same 5 guys around here? No. And all these guys go to Europe anyway. They go to play over there, so it'd be great.
Yeah, I think one of the real big draws of the movie Foosballers was how personal we got with these individuals. We got to go to their hometowns. We got to see them in their everyday life. Todd celebrating his birthday, Cindy walking the streets where she used to be a police officer, etc. Ryan doing what he does. And so that kind of works. That formula works. And so maybe you're looking at Rob Ather or Yannick Correa or Kevin Hunsdorfer in Europe. Maybe you go over to Taiwan or Hong Kong or Malaysia and focus on some of the players there who are so brilliant, or South America, even South Africa, India.
Sure.
And that's the thing, is you focus in on these individuals, their home lives, what foosball means to them, how much time they spend competing or working on their games or whatever. So that would be the strength. And I think, as Mark said, and as you said as well, giving an international perspective to it would be fascinating if done in that same fashion.
Dude, if anybody did a documentary over Costa Rican foosball, I would watch it even if it wasn't in English.
Really? No kidding.
Yeah,
with subtitles.
Dude. Those are, to me, some of the most enjoyable matches to watch in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years have been the ones where Costa Ricans were playing. And the first one I ever saw was the 2016 Worlds. It was expert singles final, Kevin Romero versus Mikey Bridgman. And it was just, I was just floored by how exciting an expert singles final could be. And granted, they're incredibly talented, so they're good players, but also the crowd.
Why is it
another
different?
one was the 20? Well, because they care. I mean, it matters to them. They're not. They don't follow this North American
they've learned from
BS rule about being quiet.
Yeah, right. I love that, Clay.
Their style of play is entertaining. Their gas factor is 100%. Everybody watching, everybody playing. It just matters. And if a Costa Rican is in a match, you will be watching that match, and you will be rooting for someone. You might root for them. You might root against the Costa Ricans, but you're going to care.
Interesting. Interesting. Very passionate.
Well, I remember a few years ago at the World Championships, they sent a team of maybe 12 individuals from Costa Rica, and about 8 or 10 of them won World Championships that weekend. Maybe, which means they're a little underrated. But again, they care. But they do it in a way, Tony Sprademan was instrumental in teaching them to play. Carlos Cespedes Martinez as well, who took the American style down there. But they do care. They play with flair and with speed and with interest.
Creativity.
Brandon Munoz, one of the most entertaining players you're ever going to see out of Costa Rica. And there's been tragedy there as well. There have been a few of their players who've unexpectedly passed on, and of course, their country. And I just envision them every night getting together in the garage for 4 to 8 hours, right? Every single day, and just battling in this hot, humid, no air conditioning kind of environment.
Jeez.
And then coming to the States and just walking all over all those experts, amateurs, pros, etc.
It sounds like a crucible. They basically got formed in the crucible by fire, by the extreme heat. Yeah, that's an interesting analogy. Wow. And so Costa Rica, now, have they had any master players come out of there that won world championships?
They have not. Kevin Romero, Carlos Cespedes Martinez, third place finishers at the Worlds in 2019. Brandon Munoz in his very first tournament, I want to say it was a kickoff for 2018 or so.
2018,
won 5 or 6 events, and certainly showed that he is a master quality player or close to it. Kevin Romero as well. And so they're yet to get there, and that just is a lack of competing against players that are better than them, really, and getting out on the international scene. And then hopefully that's something we can see in the future, because they have a tremendous number of really talented players down there. Great call by Clay.
And young too, by the way. They're not all, no offense, but they're not all 50-year-old guys who
Hey, hold on. Wait, careful with the ageism here.
Hey,
Careful.
Tell me that you don't think football needs some young talent, man.
Yes, you're correct. Yes, young talent is always good for any sport or event, for sure. No doubt about that. I'm just old. Sorry.
Hey, I'm not young either, man. I'm in my 40s. They're all in their early 20s.
40s.
This is a topic.
I'm the baby on this show, which just tells you how old the foosball crowd is.
It's a distinctly American thing, though. It really is. While you do have senior players overseas, you also have in most countries, certainly in Europe, a large number of really good young players, many of whom want to be multi-table players, which means they're also good on Tornado, Felix Drusa and Thomas Haas and Marvin Velasco and these players out of Germany, young French players as well. So it's happening overseas. Hopefully we can make it happen here as well, because we are a foosball culture of former TS players, former 90s players,
right?
And many of whom are above that, half a century mark. And it's kind of neat. I kind of like it. I kind of like that it's that way, but it would be nice to have a mix of youngsters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there may be a room once we get down to the fact that there's going to be tours again eventually. Maybe forming a seniors tour, a seniors world tour. Of course, right alongside the regular pro tour, and of course, junior tour or junior pro tour. Just a thought.
For sure. Well, in our ideal scenario, and Mark, you can help me out a little bit here. The international model with the Swiss system, basically you have your junior events, you have your senior events, you have your men's events, you have your women's events, you have your disabled events as well, all of which play simultaneously and all of which are focused on, certainly when you come down to the semifinals and finals. And so you do have this kind of thing going on. There is kind of a senior tour internationally. And it's something that in this country, I think we really need to look at. Look at that international model. Look at that Swiss system that works so well. Look at the focus on these individual groups. We're not going to homogenize them and mix them all together. We're going to treat them individually. If you want to play senior, you don't play men's, and that's fine. You play against a bunch of really good seniors. And I remember a few years ago when Todd Lafredo won the senior singles and senior doubles championships at the ITSF Worlds, a multi-table event. And it was a kind of embarrassing, really, though, to see Todd up there. But there are these individual cultures, and I think it's something that will work here in this country. Mark?
Yeah. So, like the American foosball scene in itself is a creature of habit. Double elimination tournaments. How many people can I sign up? How many events can I have to recover my pay? As the player pool diminishes, let's add more events. Make sure you have the people in the tournament room all day long until they're burnout and exhausted. Feed them chicken strips and Sprite and cookies. And like now you have zombified human beings sitting in the stands, totally wasting away. That's your audience. That model needs a complete revision,
overhaul.
It's not the same thing in other parts of the world. And now, if there's ever been a time to be a reckoning and a paradigm shift and reinvent the way we look at foosball tournaments, we can easily ingratiate ourselves to what's successful overseas. And it's the Swiss system. And imagine a world, like, I know it's terrifying, foos community, but imagine a world where you knew you're going to play a match at 1 and a match at 3 and a match at 5, and you're done at 9. And guess what? You don't have to sit in the room and eat those chicken strips. You can actually go out and have dinner and like see the town and hang out. And it's not this like a marathon of whatever the hell happens. So that's a whole other universe that Americans need to be introduced to. And someone is going to do it. I promise.
Like a plan.
It's inevitable. Let's put it that way. So when it comes to the Swiss system as a tournament structure, what are the disadvantages of a Swiss system? Anything?
The only one right now that is not even, I don't think, is a disadvantage because it just hasn't been creatively managed. I think that the conventional promoters in the U.S. push back on the idea of the Swiss system for 2 reasons. They're afraid of change and that it'll hurt their volume of entrants. And then secondarily, that it'll hurt their income because they can't run the same number of events. And if you think about it, in a silo without much creativity, that could be true that you have less events, but people don't play less. And if it's creatively managed, you can have more. You can't have the 30 events, which I think is a joke anyway. But you can absolutely have more events, and people play just as much. They have more fun, and there's ways to recover that income. It's just that promoters are scared to introduce it. Jim, you know more about this than I do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that is it. They're afraid that people won't come. They're afraid that people will look at this as being so different, or I don't get to play as many events, etc. But really, the proof is in the pudding. You know, when you talk to people who have competed in the Swiss system, whether internationally or at Warrior events to a smaller scale, Americans who have gone overseas and played the Swiss system for the first time come back saying it's great.
Yes.
I know when I'm going to play. I know who I'm going to play. I know which table I'm going to play on. I have a break for lunch. I have a break for dinner. I can go out on the town at 9 or 10 o'clock if I want to. It's clean. You still play a lot of foosball. That morning session, the qualifying session, you're going to play 5 or 6 matches in your group.
Right.
You know, hoping to qualify. You're playing foosball all day. And of course, you can also, for players who get eliminated or players who don't make the elimination bracket, you can still build in these specialty events, these second chance events to allow them to play as well. And in my experience, you know, and I've been around a little bit, not only in terms of how long I've been around, but the number of places I've been to and how many times I've experienced both the double elimination format and then the Swiss system. And for me, it's a no-brainer. The Swiss system is superior. No question about it, for all the reasons we've just documented. As far as there being a weakness, it's more of a perception. It is these players looking at, well, I don't get to play these 14 events now. And you're still going to play a lot of foosball.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to be a zombie at the end of the night. You're not going to have to eat so many chicken strips, even if it has good barbecue sauce, which I enjoy. And so, you know, for me, it's inevitable, as Mark said, there is no other sport in the world still using a double elimination format. It's a falsehood. It's a misperception when they talk about, from a promoter's point of view, that they're not going to make as much money. The players aren't going to enjoy it as much. Those are not true. Simply not true.
Well, what do I?
And it just needs to be tried. Once a player plays it, they're sold on it.
What about the fact that these days, when let's say when a couple of pro masters want to win an open event, they team up and they plan on playing together. How does that work with the Swiss system?
Same thing, the one restriction on some of these is that they are nationally restrictive. In other words, if you're going to compete at the World Championships, the multi-table World Championships, which will be held in Nantes in conjunction with the World Cup in 2022, you have to play with a fellow countryman. At that event, it is all based on countries.
Gotcha.
To qualify for that event, you have to play with someone from your own home nation. And so, to that, there is some restriction. At World Series events, I think you can still play with others. You can play with people from other countries if you don't care about qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
But to qualify, you got to play with someone from your country. So that would be about it. Other than that, you can play with whoever you want. But, there's something to be said for this whole nationalism sort of approach to any sport, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No question. I think that's where the future lies, because if we root for our team, we're going to be into it. If we root for our country, root for our team, our club system, rooting for our club, this kind of thing, that's where the enthusiasm really comes in.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I mean, we've got like 5 minutes left. It's gone by so quickly, and it's Valentine's Day. We're just talking about the love of foosball, basically. And a few other things along the way, a few other choice moments.
Yeah, and we all
a divorce.
This occurs to me. I'm freestyling a little bit here, but you know how when you fall in love, right?
Yes.
And all you can think about, you're obsessed with this girl or this woman. You think about her at night. You think about her all day. You can't wait to be with her. Didn't we all experience that with foosball?
Oh, yeah.
With foosball fever, in our first year of playing this game. Sure. I would go to bed at night thinking about a new pass or ball handling or whatever, that next thing I was going to do the next day at the arcade at that time with foosball. Well, we all fell in love with foosball, didn't we? And I think every one of our listeners, everybody in the international foosball community will agree with that. We all developed a deep love, one that really, in most cases, never leaves us, right? It's with us our entire life.
Yep.
Mark Torres, for one, who has, come and gone. He fell in love with foosball in the late 90s or in the late 80s and then into the 90s.
Dude, I was a Bachelor for like 25 years. So I thought love was something that happened in 6-week increments. And so you fell in love and you fell out of love for some reason within 90 days. That's what I thought love was. But and I hear you.
Something that you had a gold card at Motel 6. I understand that.
The social lubricant in my palm at all times, bro.
Yeah.
What? Weird.
No, but Mark, to be serious, though, Mark fell in love with foosball in the late 80s and got him a world championship, for God's sake, that he talks about on every single show.
I am the 1990 amateur doubles world champion, which I prize more than any of my number of wins versus Hall of Famers, mind you.
Yeah.
But
and most of your girlfriends from your early era as well.
Here's the thing about foosball. People, to your point, Jim, foosball is a worm in your mind that you become addicted to. It slingers. If you're a true foosball fanatic, it stays with you for the rest of your life, and you can keep coming back to it, and you can keep playing, and it just stays with you like a soulmate, man. And these guys like Steve Biney and Dave Gummison and Tracy McMillan and Steve Murray, if they could have got it out of their systems, they would have.
Yes.
And they can't and they won't.
Yeah.
So we share that. We all share that.
Soulmate. I love that. That's the name of my autobiography.
Yep. We share that, man. All of us foos fanatics, we share that.
Isn't that true?
The foosball mistress. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, guys, we've had quite a long conversation tonight, and it's been productive, to say the least.
For the most part, there was some bumps in the road
Valentine's Day. So, do enjoy the course, especially our listeners chipping in tonight and helping us out with that. Of course, ask us anything. We'll do that again sometime soon. We're looking forward to the very near future when it comes to FoosTalk Live with some great guests we're getting lined up. So stay tuned for that. Watch this space. And Mark, Jim, any parting shots?
Yeah, this was the craziest damn show.
Mark, you go first.
It's the craziest damn show. I had a lot of fun. I'm going to have to think about it and listen to it again. That's all I got to say. This show is fun and wild. Go ahead, Jim.
It was fun. And I just want to talk about and thank our listeners, you know, who
Yes.
the audience continues to grow. The word of mouth continues to grow. The feedback that we get here
awesome.
is just so positive and encouraging and really just enjoying the growth of this show and what it means in the fabric of international table soccer. And a lot of that thanks to you, Tom Robinson. So let's all just keep up the good work.
Well, it is a pleasure to do this, and it's something we all look forward to when it comes to this. You know, even my wife said, "Hey, listen, I know it's Valentine's night, but you go do your thing." So
awesome.
Yeah.
Now that's a great woman.
Absolutely. She's a keeper. No doubt about that. Well, guys, let's do this again next week. It is FoosTalk Live. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Clay Toomey, for tossing in some true color this evening.
My pleasure.
All right, guys. Next week we'll be back again with FoosTalk Live.
See you guys.
FoosTalk Live is a product of Foosball Radio and Inside Foos TV. All rights reserved. Our sincere thanks to 518 Prince, Foosball Clubs USA, Foosballers the Movie, and the United States Table Soccer Organization. Join us next Sunday for another episode of FoosTalk Live. In the meantime,
we'll see you foozing.